Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 61. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the hazard communication trade secrets. This is something that's found in the hazard communication standard. You can also find it in the process safety management standard, but they just kind of refer back to the hazard communication um, standard. Then I've had to use this a couple times when I had to find out exactly what the chemical formula was, so I could tell the state that chemical A was going to be part of our process waste going down the drain. Will it not affect our permit? What's the pH? All that good stuff. Then, so let's just get started then. So, under the hazard communication standard, OSHA has established a way that the employer can um, talk about the hazards of the chemical, but yet not give the specific um, proportions, we'll call it, of the chemical, because then anybody could really make it themselves then. So if I made Dave's Super Clean 5000, then I could always say, well, I don't want to tell you the exact trade secrets then, because then if you knew, you may know it's 50% caustic soda and 50% water, because then anybody could make that themselves at home, probably for a lot cheaper than I could make it too. So, but the big thing, of course, is that you have to tell people what the hazards are. You can't withhold hazards or things like pH, and all that. You can only withhold those proportions out there. And so let's look at all this is also from a couple of other federal trade secret laws out there known as the Uniform Trade Secrets Act or the Federal Defend Trade Secrets Act. And the laws are basically out there to protect the confidential business info from being disclosed to the public or to the competitors. Because again, anybody can make Dave's Super Clean 5000 afterward, and then I don't have a market. And of course, now I've put all this money, time, effort into this, and I have nothing to show for it. Let's go on and look at why we can do this, along with a couple of the stipulations out there. So, to say that you have a trade secret, of course, you have to go back and look at the key points. You just can't say, I've determined it's a trade secret, I just won't tell anybody, and all that good stuff then. There has to be a way that you could prove it out there. So, the first thing that we're going to do is look at substantiation. So, the employers have a valid and substantiated reason to claim trade secret protection. So, basically, they can say, I spent a lot of money, I did a lot of research, and I have to get my payback. This counts. You just can't say I've in my basement I'm mixing the water and caustic soda, and then I just pour it in gallon containers. That's not probably substantial enough then to really warrant a trade secret. So the justification, it must be in writing on why that you've decided to do this then. So, and the written part of it then has to be provided to OSHA upon their request or during a inspection. So this is so that they can go back and say, the company did or the company did not follow the stipulations of making it a trade secret out there. So alternate information then. So you have to have a way of telling people things like the proper handling, storage, emergency procedures of the hazardous substance. You're just not naming the hazardous substance. You have to train people also on how to use how to use this chemical, the potential hazards, the precautions, emergency procedures. You just can't say because it's a trade secret. Not only is it a trade secret, but now I don't have to train you on what gloves to wear, things like pH and all the rest of the stuff then. And then finally, the last one then. So access to trade secret info. OSHA has provided provisions out there then for access to trade secret info under certain circumstances, such as when medical personnel require access for diagnosis or treatment or necessary compliance with other OSHA standards. This is kind of that catch-all out there. I have gone back and asked people for the trade secret info, and it's typically worked out between lawyers. And I typically am not part of it. But the only thing that I'm worried about is if somebody's injured in my workplace, how do I treat this person? And if I know the exact chemical formula, now of course I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and all the other kind of stuff too, that we're only going to use this if somebody is hurt. And of course you give it to the doctor and all that good stuff then. In my prior example, when I talked about how I had to get this trade secret info because we were planning on using this to help to neutralize. I'm sorry, this is part of the waste water as part of our process, and it just said that the pH, was mostly neutral, and that's awesome and that's great, but that's not really a number out there. They were also worried about how they thought that it was lacking of really claiming a trade secret, and they wanted also to understand it doesn't matter if it's neutral or the pH is high or low. Is it going to kill the bugs at the wastewater plant then? So the state had a lot of questions to really make sure that we weren't saying like, well, it doesn't matter because it says it's neutral. Sorry, it killed all the bugs in the water facility. So they can go back and ask for this info to really make sure they got this info, and you're not causing a greater problem at the water treatment plant. And it's also important that people understand that when they go back and they claim that it's a trade secret, you have to go back and look at it every so often because it's not a indefinite grant of something like absolute protection. So employers must periodically review and reassess trade secret claims to ensure that they can justify it for non-disclosure. You just can't say, I came up with this formula 50 years ago and I'm not willing to. You always have to go back and justify it in some kind of a fashion out there. That is it for episode 61, Trade Secrets, as part of the Hazard Communication Standard. You can also find it as part of the Process Safety Management Standard out there. I've had to use this a couple times. Luckily, of course, I had to have this info, and nobody has ever gotten hurt, so I never had to go back and say, and here's the secret formula, doctor. Here's how you're going to apply whatever you're going to apply. And so, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to be ready in the workplace out there for accidents and injuries to happen. So, episode 61, Hazard Communication Trade Secrets. My name is Dr. David Ayers. The episode is over, and have a safe day.